Hey everybody, it's Leah with RetireWise, and we're here talking with Sean today about tax efficiency. So we'll go ahead and dive right into our first question, which is, what does tax efficiency mean when it comes to retirement planning, and why is it important?
Yeah, so in retirement, folks, you're going to have some different things factor in about taxes that you didn't have during your working years. So just a couple little nuances. You may have heard the term the retirement tax torpedo, the retirement tax time bomb. It's because there's a couple little things that are going to come together and explode up on you if you're not prepared for it, right? So there's a couple different things we want to do. So first of all, primarily, we want to build a tax efficient strategy for you. And part A of that is going to be the right kind of tax efficient strategies and investments, all right? But let's set that aside. That's really pretty straightforward. But let's dive into what makes up those time bombs and the torpedoes, right? Because you probably don't want to get hit with a torpedo,
Absolutely
right?
not.
It's kind of a little painful when that happens. So one of the things is your Social Security benefit can actually be taxed, okay? So if you make under $32,000 a year, you don't have to worry about it. But how many people in the United States bring in less than $32,000 a year? Now, I'm talking in retirement. That means taking money down from your retirement accounts, that counts as income, okay? If you make between $32,000 and $44,000 a year, 50% of your Social Security benefit is going to be taxed at your tax rate, okay? And then if you bring in over $44,000 a year, 85% of your benefit is going to be taxed at your tax rate. Takes people by surprise all the time, okay? That's one part of it. The second part of this is what's called RMDs, required minimum distributions. The reason that's part of the tax bomb is you've been putting money into these tax deferred accounts all these years, 401ks, 403bs, traditional IRAs, 457s, all these different tax deferred accounts. Great, you're saving up. Fabulous, right? But when you start taking that money out, you got to start paying taxes on it. Government saying, okay, wait a minute, you waited long enough, it's deferred long enough, I need to get my money, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to get their money, and rightly so, you're going to pay taxes, but we want to pay less as possible. So with that, the RMDs at age 73, right now it's at age 73, it's going to go to age 75. What that means is, out of those tax deferred accounts, you have to start making withdrawals. There's a percentage that's out there that's calculated by the IRS that you have to take down off those accounts every year. Well, guess what? You're paying taxes on that when it happens. It may throw you into a different tax bracket, right? But you have to take it, whether you need it or not. And then let's throw a little kicker on there with another tax component is you're bringing all this income in, they make you take the RMDs, then you're also paying for Medicare. And if you're bringing in too much over the thresholds, you're going to pay more for Medicare. It's called IRMA. It's kind of like just called an IRMA tax. It's not your Aunt Irma. It's an actual IRMA tax penalty, all right? And so those are just some components that are going to make this up of some different tax components that you didn't have to think about when you're in your working years, right? So there's some tools and there's some things to do to get through that. Tax efficient strategies, what you're investing in, doing Roth conversions, because Roth conversions convert it over tax-free. They're not subject to RMDs. Can't do that all at one time, because that's a tax event when it happens, but you build it into your strategy overall that's going to end up saving you taxes over the life of your retirement, right? Mm-hmm. So there's ways to navigate. You can't totally eliminate all the taxes necessarily, but there are ways to reduce things, unless you just come to me and say, hey, how do I pay more taxes? But most people don't say that to me.
And everything you just talked about, I think, is actually quite confusing to a lot of people.
Sure, 100%.
It's a lot of information for a lot of people that they don't know about, so that's
100%.
really come in handy for sure.
Been doing it just a minute. So.
All right. How can retirees structure their withdrawals from different accounts like IRAs, Roth IRAs, and 401ks to minimize taxes?
Great question. So she mentioned a couple different kind of accounts there. So there's three main tax categories. There's tax deferred, taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. Okay. So we talked about those tax deferred accounts, those 401ks, the traditional IRAs. That's the tax deferred. Taxable accounts are things like regular brokerage accounts or just regular savings accounts, CDs, those kind of things. Is you're paying taxes right when you take it out. You're growing it, but as soon as you sell something in a brokerage account, you're paying taxes on it. It's not deferred. Whereas in a tax deferred account, you may sell an equity or a stock inside there, and you got gains, but you don't pay taxes on it until you actually withdraw money out. Okay, so you got taxable, tax deferred, and then tax free. The only tax free one out there is that Roth. And it really takes all three of these kind of accounts to navigate a full plan, a full tax efficient plan in retirement, because sometimes it's maneuvering through those different tax types for your withdrawal strategy. So when we're doing this and we're building things like Roth conversions, we got to figure out where we're going to take that money out from. And generally, the general rule of thumb is you can take from taxable first, then tax deferred and tax free, because you're letting your tax deferrals and tax free run. Yeah. But sometimes you do have to change the order up based off of your tax situation. So that's something we would help figure out with you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for that. It was great. All right, how can charitable giving strategies like qualified charitable distributions help reduce tax liability in retirement?
Yeah, I love this. So it's called QCDs, right? Qualified charitable distribution. So hey, this is great because if you're already going to be given to charities, right? Maybe you're tithing at church. Maybe you're given to whatever charity that's your favorite charity in your community. If you're doing that anyway, why not take advantage of, hey, let's make it be a tax. Now, charitable contributions are tax advantage anyway. But here's a little trick, right? You can start doing things like, hey, if I have to take RMDs out of my account, I can take the RMD, give it to charity, right? It satisfies my RMD, and I'm giving it to charity, and I'm getting a multiple tax benefit here, right? And so if you're doing it anyway, let's factor the charitable giving. And by the way, folks, let's be charitable. Let's be giving. The Lord knows this world needs a lot more of that, right? So let's be generous. But if we're doing that, then let's take advantage of that inside of our plan. There's nothing wrong with using your charitable contributions to offset some taxes, to offset some RMDs. All that can be worked into your plan to lower your tax burden while still doing something good. So,
what are some common tax mistakes retirees make, and how can they proactively avoid them through planning?
Yeah, so the key word there is planning. It's doing that pre-planning before you get into retirement, because a lot of people don't do these things, and then they get into their first year of retirement, file their taxes that first time, and have this oh my gosh moment when they have their taxes filed the first time. So a couple things you want to do. We're talked about Roth conversion. So if you don't already have a Roth, you want to go ahead and open it prior to retiring, because you have to wait 5 years after that Roth is open to be able to take withdrawals out of that thing, or you get penalized. Okay, and so it doesn't mean even if you don't, there's ways to navigate it, but that's one of the key things is people say, oh, I'm going to start doing my Roth conversions, and then their account's not open long enough, you're going to get penalized for that, right? And the other part of that planning is, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, is planning that whole navigation of, is my Social Security benefits going to be taxed, right? And what is all this, that you got to do some pre-tax planning. And what I recommend people do, people love when I say this, is that you want to do kind of a mock tax return, right? People are like, right, you want me to do my taxes more than one time? By the way, your accountant's going to love it if you ask them to do this, because they like doing it, and it gets them prepared anyway. But what this does, you're not doing a full thing. You're just taking a purview on what your tax is going to look like, so you have time to make adjustments by the end of the year to lower your tax impact when you get to that first year of retirement. It's a good practice to do in retirement anyway. But it's all about that pre-planning, how to navigate the Social Security tax, how to navigate the Roth conversions and having the Roth accounts, and going back to see exactly where your money's at. There's 3 different types of accounts: taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free. As you're withdrawing funds out, it's all about putting that roadmap out.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right, that brings us to our last question, which is, how do changes in tax laws impact retirement planning, and what steps can retirees take to stay tax efficient as these laws evolve?
Yeah, so we never know when a tax law is going to change. The good news is they don't change overnight, right? So they're not going to pass a bill and the next day it goes into effect. So you usually have some time to adjust. So you want to keep up on things, and that's one thing we do, is we're going to keep up with tax laws and how that affects our retiree clients and our family inside RetireWise. Is that how did that tax law just affect these people, right? So let's talk about a couple things real quick. So if you had to guess, do you think taxes are going to go up or down? Yeah, probably going to go up, right? We're at we are at all-time low tax brackets. If you look at the history of the tax brackets in the United States, we're at an all-time low. Guess where the national debt's at?
Where?
All-time high, right? Something's got to give here, folks, right? And so as we're going through this challenge of the debt being as high as it is and taxes being as low as there are, there's going to have to be some give. There's going to have to be a reduction in spending in the government, probably with some tax increases. The reason we mention that is that the writing is kind of on the wall. We don't know when it's going to happen, but more likely there's going to be some tax changes along the way. So we got to keep close eye on what's happening with that. The reason we mention that is it's could affect your tax bracket, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's going to affect things like RMDs and how much you're pulling down, what you're paying in taxes, the things with Social Security. And here's the other thing. Most people say, oh, I'm probably going to be in a lower tax bracket when I'm in retirement. Well, if they change the tax laws, that could potentially change. But here's the other thing too. Remember, and this kind of goes into the last question a little bit too, is that your expenses in retirement may be a little bit different. And people say, well, my taxes are going to be lower, but you may not have all the same deductions you did. Mm-hmm. Maybe your house is paid off, you ain't got that anymore. You're not contributing to a 401k anymore. That money came out before you got paid, so your adjusted gross income is different, right? Yeah. There's those little nuances that some people just kind of gloss over that we need to think about. So whatever tax laws come into play could affect your drawdown strategy, could affect your tax implications. Let's take something that's more recent. We had the one big beautiful bill that got passed here recently, right? And what that did is it did change a few things in taxes. It did not eliminate what a lot of people thought it did. It does not eliminate taxes on Social Security. What it did is it raised a deduction for people that are 65 and older. People that are 65 and older get an extra deduction of $6,000 for individual, $12,000 for joint. What that does is it lowers your adjusted gross income, so it does affect how much you're going to pay, but it doesn't eliminate that Social Security tax. And by the way, folks, we're at the time of this recording, we're in November of 2025, and that bill was passed this year. That is only good for 3 years, and then that goes away. They have to re-up that. We don't know. We'll revisit that in 3 years and make another video and let you know. Okay, right? But those are some things to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think taxes is a scary topic for a lot of people nearing retirement.
It is.
Thank you so much for all that helpful information.
100%.
That's all we have. All right. So be sure to tune in next time for more information on how to retire wise.